Well, that was exciting. I hope you all enjoyed our new intro video for Shooting the Shit Uncensored, and welcome back to another episode of Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I am your host, Piers Austin, the handsome bearded man himself, and tonight I'm joined by a very, very special guest. But before we get to him, I just want to, before I even mention our sponsors, I just want to do a special shout out to my good friend Brent Lamberson, who's recovering from a medical incident. His son, Aylin, as well, who's watching the show. Hey, guys, hope you enjoy, and I hope you enjoy the interview with Jimmy. But guys, getting into our sponsorship, first up is Mayan Belts. They are the best makers of championship belts in the effing world. If you want a custom championship belt or a replica of your favorite championship belt, hit up Eddie and Ira Williams as you see them on Facebook, and they will give you a fantastic deal. They have special payment plans in place where you can pay as little as $20 to $30 per paycheck until that bad boy belt is paid off and in your hot little hands. And I swear to you, I have a couple of belts on my way from them, and they are amazing championships. Next is A-Rock Design. So A-Rock Designs make all the custom cups, tumblers, hoodies, keychains, and T-shirts that you see going around out there. I've got a very special CM Punk custom tumbler that A-Rock Designs has sent me. I absolutely love it. Make sure to head over there and speak to Ashley Rodriguez and get yourself an amazing deal on one of those cups. Our last but not least sponsor is Signal Studios. So Signal Studios is a recording studio based here in Sydney, Australia. So if you're a professional wrestler on the indie scene, you want to get some new entrance music, hit up Rafi Tomasian at Signal Studios. He'll be able to make you an amazing track that you'll be able to use. He'll be able to make it, send it out worldwide, and you will have an amazing bit of entrance music to go with your character. Or if you're just a musician and you want some music to write with and that sort of stuff, hit him up for that as well. He can do anything. Or if you're in Sydney, you just want a place to jam, go down to Signal Studios. It is an amazing studio space and very, very relaxing and in welcoming environment. Now, my last little bit of selfless promotion before I bring on Mr. Jacobs is we are now on ProWrestlingTees.com. That is right. You can head over to ProWrestlingTees.com/MWA World, and you can pick up following T-shirts like this one, our Shooting the Shit Uncensored shirt, which is this show right here. We have our 2020 wrestling shirt, which is our wrestling game show, which airs every Wednesday night at 10:30 p.m. Australian time, which is 8:30 a.m. United States Eastern time. You can also get our MWA black and silver logo shirt, the one that I'm rocking out tonight. And then last but not least, our MWA anime shirt. You guys need to go and check that one out. It is a really fun shirt, and it's got all of our faces here from MWA, and it's been a hot seller for us. But guys, without further ado, I'm going to bring him out now. He's a former Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion. He has been part of the WWE creative team in a writer's position. He currently works for Impact Wrestling as a producer and in their creative team. Here he is, the man, the myth, Jimmy Jacobs. How are you, brother?
I'm fantastic, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing good, man. I'm really excited to have you on, dude. Like I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. I've been following your career for quite a while, and this to me is one of those bucket list interviews, man. To really be able to sit down and talk with you. So I'm honored to have you. Thank you.
Well, that's great, man. I'm a fan of anybody who's a fan of mine. So that's the best way for me to like you. It's like, oh, you like me? You're great in my book. So thanks.
No, that's awesome, man. Wanted to sort of get in and obviously, with these interviews, we don't really want to do the same sort of questions that you've been asked time and time again. We try and sort of avoid that. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about straight off the bat, man, is like I follow you on Twitter, and your Twitter videos that you've been putting out, those insight videos. Guys, if you don't follow Jimmy Jacobs on Twitter, head over there and definitely check it out. Jimmy, you're a very intelligent guy, and some of those videos that you put out are just really well thought out, really well spoken. And I wanted to ask you about them. What was the meaning behind it of starting to put out these little videos that you were doing?
Well, I appreciate you watching and for the kind words. First of all, I had gotten off of social media back in December. I was over it. I was done wasting my life scrolling on Twitter and scrolling mindlessly on Instagram and getting engaged in politics on Facebook and all that sort of stuff. But I thought I would come back to Instagram and Twitter just to share some of my experience with people. The past 3 years plus of my life, it's been really just a journey inward. And I just want to share some of the experience, and hopefully, if that resonates with some people, I think that would be good, because I know there's a lot of people that struggle with a lot. I mean, we all struggle. Like, life is suffering. Suffering is a part of life. It's an inherent part of life. We are limited beings, and that limitation thus manifests suffering on some level, certainly. So it's like, well, what can you do? Is there a better way? And my experience has shown that, yeah, there is a better way. You don't have to have unnecessary suffering. You don't need to have this sort of pain that's consistent and that repeats itself through patterns over and over again. You don't need to live in that story of pain and suffering. You can get out of it. And so I guess I did. And I think anybody can. I think that's our birthright. I think that's a lot of the reason we're on this planet. The reason that we're playing this game on University Earth, to figure out how to work through all these struggles and all this resistance and the pain and the suffering that we all personally experience. And so I hope that a little bit of my experience and insight might resonate with some people. If it doesn't, that's fine too. It's just my experience, and I hope that it's a benefit for.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that people live a life of pain and suffering, and you're exactly right there. And one of the things that, for me, I always try and live in the present, and it's being present in that present moment as like what I'm doing right now is the most important thing. So if I'm spending time with my kids, this doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm not thinking about something else, my attention is on that moment. And that's a hard thing to do, man. It's taken me a long time to sort of get in that mentality. And it definitely sounds like your present thinking is definitely on a similar path as that as well. So,
yeah, I mean, being in the moment, there is very little that is more profound than that. The idea of being here now and having the awareness of being here now. And, and some of that starts with being aware of when you're not here now, when you're thinking about something else. I've got different things, written on my board. I've got like a whiteboard with all my stuff on it. And one of the things it says right now is consciously only think of the task at hand. And how often are we, we're doing one thing but thinking about something else? How often do we eat food and we're watching videos as we're eating, and things like that? It's like, well, what happens if I just close my computer and I'm here with my food in this moment, and I just notice the food, and I notice the texture, and I notice the taste, and you find that there's a lot of peace in living in the moment. Oftentimes we carry the past around with us, and then we worry about the future. And these are two causes of suffering right there. Like, the past only exists in our mind. That's the only place it exists. And the future is that's just something that may or may not happen. We don't know. And so we're spending our time somewhere where we're not. And you start to open up a lot of peace and a lot of serenity when you're not dragging the past with you and you're not worrying about the future.
Yeah, and I think, like, with a lot of that as well, it's allowing your mind to be silent. And you said, obviously, sitting down, enjoying the food and stuff like that. And as humans, it's hard to let our mind just go blank and just to not have nothingness on our mind. And to be able to do that, and if you're able to do that, you're then able to appreciate life so much more. And it's like, if you're able to go to, say, for a walk and overlook like a river, and, just stand there and just let your mind go blank and take in the sounds and let, you know what I mean? Like, that's truly being able to be at peace.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Like I said, there is little more profound than just being here in the moment and not splitting your attention between multiple things going on all at once, because we tend to do that. And it's difficult to clear the mind completely, but certainly we can ease the mind. They call it the drunken monkey mind, the one that goes,
yeah.
And that's where meditation comes in handy, because meditation, you just sort of sit there and your thoughts come, and you don't chase your thoughts. You sort of let them go, and you let them go by. And sometimes you notice that you start to think about things, and follow the thought, but then you go, okay, let me just come back. And slowly you can have less running through your mind, have less activity, less neuroses really running through your mind at all times. And that's why meditation is such an important practice. First of all, just in sort of lowering that rate of constant thought all day. It's great for that, which then brings the stress level down, which is then good for your health. And ultimately, if you get far enough back through meditation, past the thoughts and past the one that's thinking the thoughts, meditation is the thing that connects you to the divine, to what you really are, to what we all really are.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And being in the world of professional wrestling, which is, look, it is probably very ego driven in a lot of ways as well. It would be very hard to be able to find that peace while working in such a profession which is very cosmetic based, very ego based, very the stories of pro wrestling, you don't know who you can trust really, it would be mentally exhausting, like for a lot of times. And for you to be able to sort of say what you're saying about sort of being able to let yourself reflect and meditate and empty that mind to really feel at peace, man, like if there was more wrestlers like that back in the day, maybe we'd see a lot less issues with people with drug abuse and those sort of issues in the past. But I don't want to go into other people's stories here, but you broke into the world of pro wrestling at 15 years of age, man. Like that's wild, dude. Like as a kid, like obviously you were always a fan of the business, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I have one older brother, and he was a fan of wrestling, so I was just a fan of my older brother. So I was a fan of what he was a fan of, and he wanted to be a pro wrestler, and so he went to a school at when he graduated high school at 17, 18. And I just sort of followed him. I was 14 years old the first time I got into a ring and took a bump, and I just followed him along, and I would help set up chairs, and I would bring a video camera and I would record the shows for the other wrestlers. And I started making websites for other wrestlers, even though I didn't know what I was doing at all. And then I would play the music. I would do that back when we had to put one person's CD in and take it out and put the next guy's CD in for their entrance. And then I started refereeing because I was hanging around so much. They needed a referee. So I started doing that, and I trained to be a wrestler. And yeah, man, it's all I've known. My post-pubescent life basically is the professional wrestling business.
What were your parents' thoughts when you were hanging around the pro wrestling world? Were they supportive of it, or were they what the fuck's going on here, Jimmy?
Yeah, they were. Well, my parents don't call me Jimmy. But,
so yeah, I have a thing out of respect. If I don't know a person in the world of pro wrestling, I just use their work name. So I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And that's what I would have preferred most of my career. It's you don't call me Chris. Only my friends and family call me Chris. It felt like an invasion of privacy. But now I feel like that's just a wall up. And Jimmy, Chris, you can call me whatever I want. I'm not any of those things anyway. My parents were not thrilled about it. I was a smart kid growing up, and they wanted me to pursue something of maybe something a little higher class, something that used my talents as opposed to pro wrestling, which kind of didn't. And so they did not really want me hanging around pro wrestling and that much, but they didn't explicitly forbid it, which I guess I have to give my parents credit. I'm not a parent, but I can't imagine how it is to see your child grow up and to just want one thing for them, but even at the age of 15 or 16, give them that leeway, give them that rope to go, okay, you're doing what you're going to do. We don't particularly like it. And to see your child grow up and then grow away from you. And then, and I did grow away from them quite far for a while. And of course, things are far better now. We have a great relationship now, but certainly that's got to be a hard time for any parent to see their child sort of go down the road they don't particularly want them to go down.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing, and me growing up in Australia, that's the same thing. I think it's universal that parents, they want the best for their children. They see, like, if they, and especially I think if they don't understand something like pro wrestling, if they're not fans of it themselves, they're like, wait, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, my parents were very similar. I when I was a kid, I was like, I want to be a pro wrestler, I want to be a rock star, and they're like, you're 5'5" and you're tone deaf. Like, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. But that was like, I was like, I don't care, and really having that mindset. But it does, like, parents have a very influential place on their children's lives, no matter how old they are, and their words can really detract what they want to do or what they want to succeed. But you obviously decided to really push forward with that. When you decided to get in the ring and really sort of take your career into that level of making this a life of what you wanted to do, how did you find getting in the ring and first taking those bumps and hitting the ropes? Was it something that came naturally to you, or are you more like, oh, I don't know about this. This hurts?
It didn't come natural to me. For anybody that's ever seen me wrestle, they'll know that. And certainly earlier on in my career, but it's just like I was too oblivious to know that it didn't come naturally to me, I guess. I always had an aptitude for the storytelling aspect of pro wrestling. Even at 15 years old, I can look back at some of that stuff and go like, man, that was clever and that was smart. And I had an understanding of the psychology and storytelling and the characters and things like that from way early on. So yeah, man, my footwork wasn't particularly good and my form on things wasn't particularly good, but I didn't let that stop me. Maybe because I was too stupid to let it stop me, but I just like kept going forward. That was it. Once it was like, I joke sometimes that I've made one decision in my life, and that was to be a pro wrestler. And then I've just never made another decision since. But yeah, I wanted to do that. And then I just kept going. Like, and other people stopped, and other people that I started with, they would like not take shows when you could get booked for a show. I'm like, what are you doing? We can be booked. We can drive 2.5 hours for $10. Why would you not want to do that? And I just kept doing that just constantly. And once I graduated high school, I was 18. I had a car, and from that moment on, it was like every weekend, every opportunity, any show, no matter what the pay, just to go and get the experience. And I'm glad I did that. At a young age, I realized it wasn't about that immediate money. Some people were like, oh no, they won't pay me $40, I won't do it. It's like, it's not about the $40. It's it's not about the $100. It's about the $100,000. It's about the $400,000. It's about the $1 million. It's about that, and having the
long term.
Yeah, and having the experience of performing. I mean, what we're seeing now in the wrestling business is that there's no greater value that you can have as a performer than the experience of going different places and learning how to connect with audiences no matter where you are. And that's, why WWE has gone from, recruiting guys that are, 6'3" and taller and out of, modeling agencies, and have started taking guys who are getting over on the indies. And, once Triple H took over developmental in 2012, he started implementing more of that and grabbing guys like Kevin Owens and Finn Balor and just all these guys who ended up being top guys for WWE.
Yeah, I mean, and you've definitely seen the wrestling business evolve over the years. Like, I remember, like, you and I are you're very similar in age. But when I grew up, pro wrestlers were all 6'8", juiced to the gills and veins popping out of their neck and arms and shit, and just And you look at pro wrestlers now, and it's not necessarily you still have a few body guys here and there, but the guys now look like athletes. You know what I mean? Like, you look at even you compare it to, say, UFC, you see like a strawweight fighter or a a lightweight fighter. They don't look juiced up. They look like an athlete. They're going in there. Their body is proportionate to their height. And that's what you're seeing now in WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, these other promotions, these guys that are looking more like athletes. Like, even Adam Cole, who is in a bit of a storyline with Pat McAfee saying that he's small, I'm like, why would you bring that attention to your best heel on that brand? You know what I mean? Like, what, that shouldn't even be a thing that's thrown out in 2020 of a wrestler's height and size, because you look at the main roster and a lot of those guys are phenomenal talents, but they're not 6'6" and 280 pounds. You know what I mean? Like, it's
much to Vince McMahon's disappointment, let me tell you.
He's probably sitting there going, I don't get this shit.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And look, it's all perspective, and there is a perspective that says we're in a business of, over exaggeration, a larger than life business, and you want guys that are big. When you think of pro wrestlers, what do you picture? You picture The Rock, you picture Hulk Hogan, you picture guys like that. So certainly there's something to be said for larger talents, but we did sort of hit this changing point there where guys started to become more just look like athletes and less like bodybuilders. And I think the in-ring performance has gone up subsequently, partly because of that. Certainly the in-ring action now is better than it's ever been, just by a lot. So it's definitely a different business than it was, even 15 years ago when I first started going, backstage to WWE events. I did a couple like job matches on TV. I mean, they weren't looking at guys like me, who was starting to be a fairly popular independent wrestler at that point. I was like Ring of Honor tag team champion in 2005 when I was doing stuff for WWE. And, now that would be somebody that they would look at and go, oh, look at this high level talent. But back then, I mean, CM Punk was just getting on the radar. He was just about to get signed in 05 and spring of 05. And he was like the first, independent like star to then go on to WWE. You're talking about after ECW and WCW had died. Punk was there's other independent wrestlers that went to WWE, but Punk was the first one that like conquered the independents, and then because of that got plucked into WWE. But it wasn't, that wasn't something to put on your resume, like independent star. Now it is. Now if you get over on the independents and good for Hunter for realizing this, it's like, yes, if something works on this level, chances are it might work on this level and this level and this level and this level. Man, the business has changed a ton in the past, since I've been in, which is a long time now.
So I've got a live question here from a good friend of mine, Kevin Rodriguez, who hosts a show similar to this. Also my co-host for Wrestling with Tragedy with Angel Medina. He asked, Jimmy, you've played many roles in wrestling. What has been your favorite role so far?
My favorite role, boy. If I think about like my favorite like time in wrestling, I mean, there's a few. Everything's different. When you say role, I mean, is he talking about? I don't know exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about like backstage.
I think it's like writer, producer, wrestler, manager. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
Yeah. So there's a few times I would look at my career, but man, this was great. 2003. When I was just like 19 and me and Alex Shelley were getting in cars and just driving everywhere and wrestling each other. When I think about that time, it's like, man, that was a ton of fun. So the role of being a young up and coming wrestler with like nothing to lose and everything to gain and making a name. As I started to get more, let's call it success, for as much success as I got, it became less fun. And I enjoy my time now a lot. It's just I have a different relationship with wrestling than I used to. Back in 03, it was like I was so passionate about it. Hey, it was fun right when I got fired from WWE. That 3 months or something when I was like hot off getting fired.
Yeah,
that was a blast. Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to ask you about as well. And you can not talk about if you don't want to, but it was pretty much like it blew the internet up is when, you know, the Elite guys turned up at Monday Night Raw to do a mimic of the WCW, the DX invasion at WCW, and you went out and took a selfie with the guys, like a famous photo, and you know what, like, I just couldn't understand like the ridiculousness of a man losing his job for taking a photo with his fucking friends. Like, to me, that was like, I don't know. Like, can you explain like what was said to you about that? Like, you know, was there issues going on before that sort of happened? Like, were you unhappy with the situation in WWE at the time?
I mean, I was unhappy. Yeah. I ended up going to rehab for drug and alcohol addiction in late April. So it was all throughout May of 2017. And by the time I came back, dealing with WWE without being on drugs, all of a sudden was not as fun. And I should probably say I was more fragile. It's like there was a filter in which I experienced the world before, and that was, you know, through taking drugs all the time. And when you're newly clean and sober, everything's a bit more intense. And WWE was intense, and you're working for Vince McMahon. And so the last few months there, I was like Googling, you know, just different jobs I could do, or Googling new wrestling costumes. Maybe I'll go back and be a pro wrestler. And so it was starting to be a bad fit for me, certainly. And when I went out and I took that picture, and when I subsequently put it online on my Instagram, as I was standing in Gorilla, just like, you know what, F it, and I, you know, put it online. I knew that it was probably going to make somebody mad. I mean, it was not something I would have done, you know, 2 years before that, when I was like really cared about having that job and I was just trying to not get fired. But I knew it would probably make somebody mad. I didn't think they were going to fire me over it. I didn't think it would be like that. I thought I would, you know, somebody would say something to me about it, and they'd be like, well, he's good at his job, so let's, you know, we'll keep him around. And
so who sat down and had that conversation with you, like after, like when you posted the photo? Was it straight away? Was it that night, or was it sort of like?
So that night, you know, 10 minutes after it went up, I was in the writer's room, and my boss and Road Dogg and Michael Hayes, they came into the room. They cleared everybody else out, and my boss Dave. And Dave's a great guy, man. He's awesome. All those guys are awesome, man. I had a great experience. I miss those guys more than anything. But you know, Dave, you know, being my boss, had to be like, hey, what the hell is this? Why am I seeing this on here? And I just kind of was like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I wasn't thinking. And you know, and Triple H was very upset by it. And so I, you know, later on in that evening during Raw, I went and I talked to Triple H, and Hunter was cool about it. He was like, geez, man, what the hell were you thinking? And I was like, I guess I wasn't. And then, you know, we talked for a while, and he gave me some advice, and he's like, well, no, he said that when he started in the company, somebody gave him this advice, and it was this. It was, around here, you've always got a gun to your head, but just don't give other people the bullets. Which I guess is something for WWE, which is the place where you have a gun to your head. But I cleared the air with Hunter, so I don't know who brought it to Vince. You know, Hunter said he wasn't going to. I don't know who did. Maybe my boss, just because like he needed to show Vince that, because if Vince found out some other way, I mean, that's what I would guess happened. But I don't know. But my guess is it went something like this, that I'm guessing my boss went to Vince and said, hey, sir, just so you are aware, this happened. You know, I talked to him, Road Dogg talked to him, Michael talked to him, and, you know, we've got it, you know, so whatever. And Vince is probably like, oh, God, you can't look at him just trying to get himself over. Because that was Vince's, one of his problems with me, because I'm a bit eccentric. I guess some people think I'm eccentric, and so, you know, when I was wearing a pink collared shirt or something, or I had a purse, and Vince is always like, oh, he's like the Nakamura of the wrestler of the writing team.
I don't think that Vince really understands, like, you know, modern Like the way people are in the modern world today. Like I think by all sounds of things, he definitely sounds like he's still stuck in somewhere between 1986 and 1988.
Well,
But
he's certainly stuck in his own world being a billionaire. You got to believe that how he experiences the world is just not the world we experience. But yeah, so that was Vince's. If Vince had a problem with me, it was that I was a little too flashy, and to him, this was probably just another sort of manifestation of this guy being a little too out there. And I'm guessing it was his decision to fire me. But I could be wrong, man. That's somebody else could have brought it to him. I have no idea. But ultimately, the following week. Actually, where was I? I went to Italy actually with my family for a few days, then did Raw and SmackDown in Colorado. And then once we got back from Colorado, when I was in the office on Thursday, so it's about a week and a half later, that I was brought into HR and I was let go. And it was great. It was there was one moment as I was about to get on the elevator when I was told, hey, they want to see you in HR. And I knew it was going to happen. So I go to the elevator and I'm standing there like, wow, this is it. Like today's the day. This is happening right now. I'm living through about to get fired from W. That's in a relief and great.
But that's insane. Like, did they sit down and go, well, you took a selfie with the Young Bucks and Marty Scurll and Cody Rhodes, and we don't allow you to take selfies here. I'm just imagining the ridiculousness of the conversation, though. Like, yeah. I'm not trying to make fun of it. It's just
the where they tried to frame it was based off of something in like the social media clause of whatever agreement I signed, or whatever agreement I signed was short, but saying that you won't disparage the company on social media, while you're working for the company. And so they said that me putting this photo out there with, hashtag, BC invasion with those guys who were there, they were there to disparage the company. And I sort of latched on and promoted them who were disparaging the company. And it was all fine either way, however they wanted to slice it. I mean, I knew they could fire me for whatever. That there was nothing in the contract that said it was the agreement, it's like a 1.5 page contract. It's like nothing, basically saying, I'll write for you and you'll pay me as long as either of us want that to happen. And so they didn't need a reason to fire me in my mind. And I was, it was a relief. I would have never done it myself. I would have never had the balls to quit the place. And it was such a blessing to go. Sometimes I wish that I would have left under better circumstances, that I would have just said, hey, I think this isn't a good fit anymore, and left on good terms. But the fallout from getting fired like that was a lot of fun. So no.
Oh, dude, I can just imagine. I was actually picturing Vince McMahon sitting there going, "Well, pal, we don't do selfies." I don't know, man, but we got a comment here from Angel Medina, who is a former ECW original and good friend of mine and co-host of mine from Wrestling with Tragedy. He says, I have a bitter relationship. Pro wrestling is like an abusive relationship. It beats you down and you still defend them.
Yeah. It's like when wrestling is your life and your world, it feels like that. It feels like a thing that's an abusive relationship, and you give and give and give and give, and all it seems to do is take. But every once in a while, there's this really brilliant moment. And you go, yeah, this is why I'm doing it. But that's just, that's a perspective. And I used to have that perspective. I used to live in that world because wrestling was so important to me. It was my life. It was this thing I just, this passion I had. And now I've let go of that part of my relationship with wrestling. Wrestling doesn't have that sort of hold on me, and I don't have that sort of hold on it. It's just now something that I enjoy, that I do, that I get paid for. And it's a much healthier relationship just to sort of, be there and be grateful for what it is, not trying to fill a hole in your soul with it. Like, oh, maybe if I'm a successful pro wrestler, I won't have this big hole in my soul. Because that's what I tried to do. I felt I had this hole inside of me, and I was trying to fill it with all these different things, and pro wrestling was certainly one of them. But now you just look at it, and I love it for all its absurdity. I love it when it's good. I love it when it's bad, because I'm not so attached to it emotionally. I'm not going on the roller coaster ride. And that was great in my 20s to do that. It was great in my 20s to like just be so passionate and really care and really, live or die. I love this business, with pro wrestling. But it's much healthier and it's much more enjoyable. I enjoy pro wrestling now so much more because I'm not so wrapped into it. Hell yeah. I feel the same way. Oh, God.
Yeah, no, Angel's a great guy, man, and he's been in the business for over 20 plus years. So, but you mentioned as well that you did a stint in rehab prior to your leaving of WWE. Let's go into that a little bit. Like, obviously taking drugs and stuff like that, was that something of your way to deal with working in the WWE, or was that something that you'd struggled with for years and years and years, and it just got to a point that you needed to address it?
Yeah, I started taking drugs when I was like 20. Glad you are happy in pro wrestling. Thank you. Yeah, when I was 20, I had gone through a breakup, and then I started drinking a little bit. I didn't drink before that, and I was like, oh, drinking, this is great. Your brain doesn't so much. And when I took my first 2 Vicodin at 20 or 21, I mean, that was it. It was like, it was this huge relief. It was like this weight off my chest. I could finally breathe. And, I don't know if I was depressed as a kid or depressed later. I was depressed at some point, or struggled with depression, however you want to say that. And so I started doing drugs, and I just wanted to feel like that all the time. And I tried to. For the next 12 years, I just, whatever was in front of me. Opioids were definitely my drug of choice. But yeah, it's not how I dealt with WWE. It's how I dealt with everything. It's like, oh, you're upset? Take a couple. Oh, you're sad? Take a couple. You're mad? Take a couple. Oh, you have to go and meet your girlfriend's parents? Here, take a couple. It'll ease you down. Oh, you want to celebrate? Here, take a few. We'll celebrate. Oh, we're at the casino. Here, take a few. Whatever. There's you. Sorry.
You justify taking it, and you justify like, yeah, man, like, fuck, it's a Thursday, it's close to a weekend, like, let's take a couple, man.
Right. It's like first you just take them for special occasions, and then it's like Tuesday's a special occasion. Like, what's more special than Tuesday, guys? That becomes your life, and it was my life for a while.
Yeah, man. Like, and exactly how you're saying that is, I went through the same thing when I quit smoking cigarettes. It's like, oh, I'll only smoke on the weekends. Oh, it's a Thursday. I've had a good week. I'll have a couple of cigarettes. There's like, I'll only smoke when I drink, and I maybe drink once a week. Then it's like, my wife's like, why are you drinking on a fucking Monday? Like, why are you having a beer? Oh, it's a Monday. I had a good training session. Let's, justifying that to yourself to say, oh, no, it's okay. But the fact that you were able to sort of identify that and then go, well, hold on a second. I feel good when I'm taking this, but I can't keep living my life like this. Like, to be able to say, like, anyone can sit down and have an intervention with you and say, listen, you have a problem. But I really think it comes down to the individual who's going through that, who's living that life, if they want to make that change. And that's something that clearly you've did. But for you, what was the breaking point where you went, I need to fix this?
Well, I was a pretty high functioning drug addict, all things considered. I ended up doing pretty well for myself, at least in the business, and pretty high functioning, I would say. So in my mind, it was a problem, but it wasn't really a problem. Really, part of what it did, it perpetuated the depression, right? And so you maybe you take drugs because you're depressed, but the drugs just sort of perpetuate depression and just make it worse and worse and worse. And so that was the problem. But in my head, it's like, well, I'm depressed. I guess that's just my homeostasis. That's my constant state. And so if I take drugs to not be depressed, I guess to sometimes not be depressed, I guess that's good and whatever. It was when I was going through a breakup that I ended up going to rehab because I couldn't at that point handle. I was trying to get sober after the breakup, and then trying to get sober and go through the breakup. It was just not going to happen, and it was going to get worse. And I was on the floor of my friend Ryan's apartment. I was on my knees and I was crying, and I was thinking, man, I'm going to go get a fifth of vodka. I'm going to go to the strip club. And I'm going to find some heroin. And my buddy Ryan goes, hey, what are you thinking? And I just go, I think I need to go to rehab. And I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking about getting heroin at the strip club. But like divine intervention, I guess. And it was. And through that gift and through desperation, I was on a flight the next day to Scurry, Texas. No direct flights there, but to Dallas, and then to Scurry, to the Tree House is the name of the place I went to. And it wasn't pleasant, but it was great. It really was a time that I was able to distance myself, not just from drugs, but from just the life I was in. You know, pro wrestling, all of it. See, we're all of us are in this bubble that is our lives. We're all living these stories, and we're trapped in these stories, and we think these stories are reality because, like, it's all we know. It's what we're living in. So we can't imagine that the way we're living is just a story, and we can change our perspective and thus change our story whenever we want. I was given the grace of going 30 days away from everybody. Nobody's allowed to contact you. Nobody's allowed to talk to you, and you're only there to deal with yourself. And just having that distance from my life, just enough to go, yeah, I don't think I'm doing it right. Maybe I should be doing it different. And that sent me on a quite the journey the past 3+ years.
That's wild, man. And you know, and as you said, you went back into WWE in a position, you know, which, you know, as a fan, I've never worked for a major wrestling promotion, so you're the one who's best to say this. But from all accounts, which has been told in online and social media, being part of the writing team is probably one of the most intense, stressful positions one could have. You know, dealing with, like, you know, obviously the higher ups of WWE, but then dealing with, like, as we mentioned before, the egocentric talent, like, no, I don't want to do this, but not give you anything to go off. How stressful was that job for you?
I wasn't stressed at first. When I first got there, I was really happy to be there. And I look, and at that point in my life, again, I was all about it. To me, you know, I had this story in my head that I was the first independent wrestler to ever be on the writing team. And I was breaking down these, you know, barriers and all this sort of stuff. And then there's pressure on me now too, because I'm the first one. And if this goes bad, which it did, but I was good at my job.
You were there for a few years, man.
I was there for a couple years. But Vince McMahon, after the incident happened to me, he said, he told my boss to never hire an independent wrestler on the writing team again. So I got that going.
But like, were you ever, like, when you got signed to be part of the writing team, were you kind of like, I kind of wanted to be a wrestler in the ring, or was it like, no, this was an opportunity to work for WWE and to be part of creative? Was that not a major thing for you, or were you just, like I said, were you happy to be a part of the team?
No, at that point, I had an incident in July of 2014 where it was really brought in front of me, you know, that I wasn't supposed to be a wrestler. I was supposed to be a writer. I was supposed to go into creative. I was that was my journey. That's where my journey was going. And once I realized that, once I had that epiphany, it was like I had been knocking my head up against the brick wall for 15 years or whatever. And then I looked over and go, oh, there's a door right there. Why didn't anybody tell me? And I just walked right through the door. It was so I was gung-ho, all in on going into creative. Like that was it. I mean, that's what I was good at from, like I said, from the time I was 15 anyway, was the creative aspect, the storytelling aspect, psychology aspect, character aspect. So I was completely gung-ho about it. There was nothing inside of me that thought I was going to be a pro wrestler again. Hell yeah, dude. Thanks, Angel. Appreciate it, dude. Oh, man. Love Homicide. Love Dada. Hell yeah.
Angel is, like I said, he's a guy who's been in the business for 28 years, who's been
Angel
part of
Pro,
ECW.
right?
Yeah, he was the Baldies. Yeah, that's correct.
All right, yeah, of course, yeah, I know. He came. I met him at a few Ring of Honor shows in where did he in the
Early
last
2000s, I think, because that's when he had a few friends with him.
met him there. God, was he in St. Louis? Does he live in St. Louis by any chance?
No, now he's in Kansas.
Kansas. Okay, yeah. So that's around the St. Louis area. Yeah, he did.
Oh, okay.
Came to a show. Yeah. This was in the my later Ring of Honor years, whatever, in 2013, 14, I believe. Yeah, I met him there.
But yeah, look, mentioning going the creative, I definitely think that a lot of wrestlers can go into that role, into the creative role, because you have to have a creative mindset, and I believe, to be a professional wrestler. You have to have some kind of thought pattern on where you want at least yourself to be, and I think that everyone can really write their own story, depending on
it's not easy. When
no, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying
got the job as a writer, I realized why there's no wrestlers in these roles. It's because they're not a wrestling role. It's the job is to be a writer. It's putting pen to paper, man, and it's definitely a difficult task, especially when you have 3 hours of Raw every week and 2 hours of SmackDown and an hour of NXT and an hour of 205 Live and whatever else they're doing now. Plus the pay-per-views, plus whatever else, and then plus you have the crazy man at the helm. So it would be difficult without him, but it's even more with him. But when you're putting on that much content and doing it every week, and even now, Impact Wrestling 2 hours every week, you start to feel like you're running out of stuff to do. It's like how many more ways can you have two guys be mad at each other and then end up fighting each other? It feels limiting sometimes, and so it's difficult to do all of it and do it constantly. So props to those guys. Props to the WWE writers. I was in the writers' room for about an hour or two my first day before I realized, oh, all these guys are really smart. All of them are really creative. All of them are really talented. They all get it. None of them are
simple.
Dumb Hollywood writers that want, that idea that's sort of propagated that the writers are just these guys from Hollywood that know nothing about wrestling. And it's like, no, they all get what's going on. They're all in the same business that we're in, and very, very talented bunch.
And I think wrestling fans as well, wrestling fans are definitely like the armchair quarterbacks, the armchair bookers and stuff like that. It's like, I could write better WWE television. It's like, oh, you can do better than a professional writer who's gone and done this and been involved in this for years. Okay, then.
And maybe they can. But what I find most often is that what people do is they criticize and they say, well, you shouldn't do this. And it's like, fair play, man. Don't do that. What I learned very quickly was the shows don't get written with what you don't want to do. On the lineup, it doesn't say not John Cena versus Roman Reigns, not Kane versus The Undertaker. It's got stuff on it. You need something on the piece of paper, and so you can't say, well, I don't do that. Well, why would you have this guy lose? Well, why would you? You can't have. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's like fair enough, man, but you have to do something. So what's the going to do? Well, you're going to give away a match you don't want to give away, and somebody's going to lose that you don't want to lose. And so sometimes you're going to have a finish that you don't really want to have, and sometimes things are going to get a little muddier than you want them to be, and sometimes this is going to make this guy look bad and you don't want him to look bad, and all of it. And especially when you have so much content, a lot of times you have to sort of pick the least of the evils, or what you're going to get the most out of without doing the most damage. So it's a tricky situation, and it's hard to keep things fresh as well. Again, there's only a finite number of ways to have two guys, want to compete in a wrestling match.
And then it's the world of pro wrestling. I think everything's been recycled a few times. You know what I mean? Like it's just putting a fresh spin on it and making someone believe that it's something new and something different. Like yourself, sorry, what was that?
That's what you try to do. You try to think it's something different.
But you know, one of the things I wanted to touch on is, like, as I said at the beginning of the interview, Jimmy, I've been a big fan of yours from the independents. As you can see, I've got a CZW replica title just over my shoulder here, so that shows how much of a mark I am for the indies. But what I wanted to ask you about is, you know, you did an entrance, or a gimmick called the Zombie Princess, and to me that was like, I don't know, I was watching that the other night, and I'm like, I'd watched it before when you done it. I was like, man, this is such a badass entrance. It's like, in wrestling, you see guys that want to be this big, tough, like staunch dude, and then you're coming out calling yourself a zombie princess. Like, to me, it's like, that's creative. I was like, dude, that's really cool. How did you come up with that whole concept of the zombie princess and the entrance and the ring attire and all of that? Because I loved it.
So the moniker Zombie Princess first came about in 2012. I was going into a match with Kevin Steen, and he had made fun of my nail polish or my eyeliner or something. And I basically said, hey, look, I don't need to dress tough. I don't need to look tough. I don't need to talk tough, because I am tough. I've been beaten up, beaten down, bled more times than I can count, but I still get back up. See, I can put myself in a tutu and tiara, call myself a princess. I'll still be the toughest guy in the room, because just when you think I'm dead, I come back to life like a zombie. I'm like the zombie princess, so something like that. And so it just, I'd been wanting to use the name princess actually for a really long time. And there was something about it that, seeing a guy who would stab you in the face and call himself a princess at the same time. And when you get that, what would you call that? The duality of that, or there's something intriguing whenever you have a character that sort of says one thing or looks one way and acts a different way. And so that's how the character came about. And then, once I left WWE, I wanted to try some fun stuff. And I was like, hell yeah, man. Let me be a zombie princess for like what I wanted it to be was like when, Finn Balor would have the demon and just have the zombie princess once in a while, which is basically what I ended up doing. I only did it about a handful of times, just on a few special matches and special occasions.
I thought it was absolutely brilliant. One of the promotions that you wrestled for a number of years is a promotion that it's pretty much notorious, and it has a notorious owner, and that's IWA Mid-South. How did you find your time there? As I said to you before, I'm not after any shoot or sort of talk bad about anyone or anything like that, but how was your experience working at IW Mid-South and particularly working for Ian Rotten?
Yeah, man, I love it, dude. Ian was the first one to really, give me and Alex Shelley a platform. He was the first one, promoter with any sort of stage to put me on it. Like not to disparage any other promoter that I worked for, but Ian, you got to remember 2003, Smart Mark Video was big and the tape trading was big, and IW Mid-South had a bit of a platform. And Ian saw something in me and Alex Shelley. He had brought us down, just because we would drive down for next to nothing. And he saw us, we had a couple matches together, and he's like, all right, there's something here. And, he gave us that stage. And, man, I was still working for Ian. When's the last time I worked for him? I mean, I'm sure last year at some point. I mean, now with all the companies not running. I mean, I think he did a death match thing, I think, like last weekend or something. But I love Ian. I have a great relationship with him. When I'm in the Phoenix now. I was in the Midwest. When I was in the Midwest, I was still working for him. When I was working for WWE, he would come to the shows. I would, see him at, in the arena, and we would meet out back. And man, yeah, I love Ian. He did a lot for me, and he did a lot for a lot of guys, especially in that time. 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. You look back at some of those shows, dude. Everyone on him.
And that's the thing. I really feel like he gets a lot of people throw a lot of shade at Ian, but he's also done a lot of good for the business, and he's done a lot for establishing a lot of guys. You look at guys like Chris Hero, the Christ brothers, or OVE, yourself, Alex Shelley. JC Bailey, for example, as well. All these guys have been able to give him a platform, but also do it in different types of genres. So you had your mat wrestling, your high flying wrestling, you had your ultra violent deathmatch stuff as well, and he was able to mesh it all together. And I think that's you see a lot of promotions. They're either deathmatch promotions or they're wrestling promotions, and very rarely, there's not many promotions that can mix it well and do it well, besides obviously IWA, GCW, CCW, and companies like that. But with your time there, did he ever try and get you to go into the deathmatch style of wrestling and say, hey Jimmy, do you want to go roll around in some barbed wire? Or
yeah, I did do one barbed wire match for him. This is in 2008. He wanted me to do a barbed wire match for BJ Whitmer, and I did it. But I asked for a bit of money, which is more money than I ever made at that time. And he reluctantly agreed, and he made good on that money. It was a bit of money. Again, it was a lot more than it's still more than I've ever gotten paid for one match. Wow. So I did one barbed wire match. It's on YouTube. You can see it. My body's scarred up from it. I've got a big scar down my back, and whatever. I didn't enjoy doing it, and I wouldn't do it again for any money.
Yeah, I mean that's a big commitment to go. Yeah, I'm going to go and risk putting. I mean, pro wrestling is a massive risk on your body as it is. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's a predetermined outcome. You're not legitimately trying to kill each other, but the risks are always there, and it's a very fine line. Like, something can happen. Mistakes happen in life. Mistakes happen in the ring. But to add that extra element of like the gimmicks and the barbed wire and stuff like that, man, like hats off to the guys that do it. Like, if I was a wrestler, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm gonna stand here on the mat.
I just don't really like pain, so I was scared of the barbed wire. I just didn't want to get cut. I didn't want to, and of course I did. So yeah, I wouldn't want to do that again.
Also, part of your time in Ring of Honor, you were a part of a faction called Scum. How did you enjoy working with those guys and really sort of being involved in that faction there? Was that something that you guys were all friends and you really sort of came to Ring of Honor with the idea, or was it with something that Ring of Honor came to you guys and said, hey, we got this idea, we want you guys to do this? How did that come about?
Yep. So I had left Ring of Honor in 2009 after about a 6-year run there. And one of the things I did, and I was leader of a faction called the Age of the Fall, with now Seth Rollins and the Necro Butcher and a few other guys kind of went in there, and we wreaked havoc over Ring of Honor for a while. So I left in 2009. In 2011, the booker then called me up, and he had an idea he wanted to do, basically to bring back the greatest villains of Ring of Honor. Of the history, sort of, and put them all together. And it was me and Kevin Steen and Steve Corino, and he had talked about adding a fourth. And at the time, Punk was, I thought he was finishing up with WWE. He was doing that. That was like the summer of Punk. And I was like, oh, he actually finishing up? Is it going to be me, Punk, and Kevin and Corino? Like, that's a faction right there.
That's a mark out moment for everyone. Yeah.
I was like, I thought maybe the booker was kayfabing me on it. Like, he's like, yeah, I think more. I was like, oh man, that'd be cool. But yeah, so it ended up being me, Kevin, and Steve, which was awesome. Those guys are great dudes, and we had a really good time together. Kevin's a very creative guy. I mean, it was really more Kevin's. It ended up being his. He was the leader and the sort of brains behind it. Whereas Age of the Fall, I mean, both on the screen and behind the scenes, it was co-collaborative, don't get me wrong, but it was my creative investment. The Age of the Fall was like, I had a lot of hand in it. Scum, it was more Kevin. It was like the way he wanted it done, the way he saw it is kind of the way we did it, which was great. It was a great experience.
And that's the thing, you mentioned Age of the Fall and partnering with Seth Rollins, and I remember watching him as Tyler Black back in Ring of Honor, and just, man, like, he is just such a talented guy, and what he's able to do in the ring. But how did you find working with him? Like, you guys were tag champs for a period of time as well. I think 2-time tag champs in Ring of Honor with Seth. Tyler, Seth. How did you find working with him? Was it something that you guys were friends beforehand, or were you guys sort of thrown together?
Yeah, so we first teamed together on MTV's Wrestling Society X.
I
That was
remember
shot
that.
in 2006 and it aired in 2007. So that's when Tyler and I first teamed. Now I knew him for a couple years before that, working together at IW Mid-South. So after we teamed at Wrestling Society X, I knew we were starting this faction, this what ended up being called the Age of the Fall, and looking to get different guys in it. Tyler was one of the guys that I had suggested to be in it, and Gabe Sapolsky, who was the booker at the time, saw Tyler, and he saw a lot in Tyler. He saw Tyler was going to be a big star, so he put him in the group. Ultimately, I think the group was really a vehicle for him to get pushed right away, be with somebody that was an established guy there, but then be a vehicle for him to go in to be at the top.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, I thought it was great, the work that you guys did together there. But guys, look, it is getting to that 1 hour mark, and Jimmy has been kind enough to give us our time. We don't want to sort of take too much advantage of it, but it is that time of the show, guys, where it's everyone's favorite time of the show. Jimmy has been warned. Yeah, I'd say warned is probably the appropriate word. It is time for Guess the Aussie Slang Game. Okay, so Jimmy, we asked you before, you've never been to Australia before. Have you got any Aussie mates? Have you got any Aussie friends that you talk with that you know?
Not particularly, no. I mean, I've met, of course, a handful of Australian people in my life, but yeah, I haven't been. So if somebody wants to bring me to Australia, hey, bro. If somebody wants to bring me to Australia, I'll definitely come. Hey, what's up?
There you go. All right, well, we're going to get started. So the first Aussie slang word I'm going to use is beauty, and I'm going to use it in a sentence. Mate, that's a fucking beauty right there.
I mean, is it more than an attractive woman?
No, it doesn't necessarily have to mean to do with a female or another person. It just means like, oh, that's great. Like, mate, that car right there is a fucking beauty.
That's a be okay. Yeah, that's fair. I'll go with that.
Hey, mate, what do you want for brekkie?
That breakfast.
You got it. All right, cool.
That's easy. All right.
Oh, mate, I'm chock-a-block.
That's full.
Yep. Okay, there you go. I've got to make these a little bit harder. Okay. Hey, you want to come over to my house for a piss up?
To drink beer.
Fuck, man, this guy's good. You must have done a little bit of research here.
Man. I haven't. Is that right? Okay, good.
All right.
Well, in England, to get pissed is to get drunk. That's
yeah. Well, that's the thing. I've got friends from the United States, Canada, and they're like, "Oh, what did you do on the weekend?" "Oh, not much, mate. I just sat around and drank piss." They're like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "Oh, no. Yeah, beer. I drank some beer." All right. Hey, mate, pass me the goon. Goon.
Yeah. The remote control.
No. So goon is what we call wine in a box. So it comes in a box. It's called goon. So, all right. Going off. My wife's in the other room and she's going off.
Yelling because she doesn't like you.
Well, she's my wife, so I hope she likes me. But yeah, she's going off her head. She's off her dial. Okay, so we got another one as well. Bogan. My Uncle Ronnie is a complete bogan.
A lovely individual.
Yeah, okay. So a bogan is kind of like an Australian redneck, if that makes sense. So to give you an example, this is how a bogan would talk. Yeah, you going, fucking Jimmy. Yeah, great talking to you, mate. We're going to go down the pub, have a few schooners, mate, have a couple of schnitties, maybe pick up a couple of Sheilas and come home, smoke a few bongs. You up for it? That's how a bogan would talk to you.
All right.
All right. So another one. Oh, mate, I'm Devo.
Tired.
Devastated.
Devastated. Oh.
Devastated. Like, oh man, I'm completely devastated. All right, so this is another one. Hey mate, can you pick me up a packet of durries from the servo? So there's 2 in there. Can you pick me up some durries at the servo?
Beef jerky at the store.
cigarettes at the service station.
All right.
Okay. Hey, mate, I'm just going to go past Macca's. Do you want anything?
McDonald's.
I think. Can you hear me?
No?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to go past Macca's?
Macker?
Yeah. You want some Macca's?
McDonald's.
Fuck, mate. You
that
are
McDonald's?
seriously really good at it. It is. It is. You are really good at this, man. I've got to try and find some harder ones here. All right. Oh, mate. That was some hard yakka. Hard yakka.
Vodka.
No. Hard yakka is like hard work.
Okay.
All right. Bloody ripper. Mate, that was a bloody ripper.
Great song.
Yeah, well, it means great. It means anything like amazing, sensational. Okay, so this is the last one that I'll do for you. Oh, fuck no. Dad's outside and he's wearing his budgie smuggler again.
Overalls.
No, so budgie smugglers are a speedo because what it looks like when you get out of the water, it looks like you're smuggling.
Fair enough.
Budgie. But Jimmy, thank you for playing the Aussie slang game. Jimmy, thank you for being a guest on Shooting the Shit Uncensored. It has been a great time sitting here talking with you, and I definitely want to try and get you back for a part 2 somewhere down the line. Jimmy, where can people find you, man?
Yeah, man, you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Jimmy Jacobs X, or you can find me in the real world too. I mean, I'm around. I exist. I ain't scared of no ghosts out here. So,
well, there you go. If you see Jimmy Jacobs out in the real world, make sure to say hello. I just want to say a special thank you.
Get right in here.
Just come in and give a hug. No social distancing required. Just be like,
oh man, no viruses, no illnesses, right? Can't we all just agree?
Let's just all hug. Let's just hug it out. But just want to say thank you to everyone for watching. Also, just want to say a special thanks to all my sponsors, Mayan Belts, Signal Studios, and A-Rock Designs for really being able to support this show and making this show possible every week. Guys, until next time, I'm Piers Austin. This is Jimmy Jacobs, and we really appreciate you guys tuning in. Till next time, guys, we'll catch you soon, and click that subscribe button. Bye.